Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and episode number 2 of our new Legends wish list. Today we're doing the National League Central, and I am here today with my buddy Justin and Sportsman. Say what's up, Justin.
What's up? What's up? You guys go follow me on Instagram, jarthqb11, on Twitter, justinarthqb, and coming soon, some YouTube vlogs following my professional quarterbacking journey at Justin Arth on YouTube.
He
All
is
right.
a good friend of mine from college, so definitely go check him out. Real good guy. And the Sportsman 44, you are on Instagram and Twitch, is that right?
You can find my Instagram at underscore the sport TSM44. I'm also on Twitter under the Sportsman44. I do stream occasionally on Twitch as well.
There we go. So, same rules. If you guys missed the rules, I'll rehash them here shortly. I explained them better in the last video. But we're going to go through, do a couple of legends per team. We'll talk about some of the less obvious ones. For example, Barry Bonds. That has been done in countless YouTube videos, I am sure. And you guys can go watch like Cougs or something for their list to hear about them. We're going to focus more on the lesser known people, or not lesser known, but the lesser talked about people, perhaps. Let's start with Cincinnati. Justin, why don't you give us the Cincinnati people that are not named Pete Rose?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of people that have already been in the game. For me, I'm going to go with one that not very many people know. A guy from back in, or he died back in 1960, but he played back in the 1920s, from 1921 to 1933 with the Cincinnati Red Stockings. I'm going with left-handed starting pitcher Eppa Rixey. This dude was elected into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in 1963 with a 3.15 ERA, 266 wins, and 251 losses. The dude had over 1,300 strikeouts, too. He was a pretty solid pitcher, had kind of an up and down career until he kind of picked it up towards the end of his Cincinnati Reds. He had a really good fielding percentage, too. He had a career fielding percentage of a 9.78. So this dude was legit in the field. I think he's a nice little lefty to include in the Cincinnati Reds legends that they've got there. Probably a gold card, but not a bad shout to put him in Diamond Dynasty.
Buddy looks like he's 6'5".
Yeah.
Buddy looks like he's a monster. Also screams like Enos Slaughter all name team.
Well, let's see his nickname too. Love to see Matt Vasgersian or whoever's going to be the guy say his nickname. Jephthah.
Jephthah.
Well,
Yeah, I was looking at that. Where do you get Jephthah? I don't feel like Jephthah is easier to say than Eppa.
so Eppa in Latin is pronounced Jephthah, and so he took a Latin class, and that ended up being his nickname.
Hi, big guy. I don't think he's been in the game. Sportsman has a better knowledge of players that have and haven't been in the game than me and Justin do, and that's the helpful thing about having him here this time.
Yeah.
Frank Robinson. Has he been in the game before?
No, and it was actually one of the players I was actually going to mention. Simply because not only did he have an MVP season with Cincinnati, you could also flip him, and he would do the same thing for Baltimore. And another interesting thing is that he's also the first player managers, when that was still a thing. And the last one was Pete Rose, but Frank Robinson is an interesting card.
Yeah, going back to Frank Robinson, looks like he was an outfielder, so you could theoretically use him anywhere.
Right.
He played first base for a while. Frank here, I mean, just look at the accolades on the screen. I can see him. The people can see him. Justin and Sportsman can't. 14-time All-Star, 2-time MVP, Rookie of the Year, Triple Crown. I mean, he checked off all of the boxes, including Manager of the Year. The other one I had, and I don't know if you had this one, Justin, but was David Concepcion.
Yeah, that was the other one that I had.
Probably more integral to that Big Red Machine than Johnny Bench, Pete Rose, and Joe Morgan. Really, really important on those teams. Tony Perez as well.
Concepcion, it was an infielder, Venezuelan. it appears.
Yes.
He had a bunch of All-Stars in a row. He had a bunch of Gold Gloves. It feels like he would be the natural replacement almost to Vizquel, since we probably won't see Vizquel in the game anymore. It feels like he'd be a good defensive type, maybe a little bit better hitter. He's obviously not a switch hitter. That was one I landed on. Spent all 19 years on Cincinnati, so he was a Cincinnati lifer. Just kind of crazy to think about.
He would probably be like an Ozzie Smith. Just like high contact, not as much power, and really good defensively.
Speed. He had 41 stolen bases in 74. He had some speed early in his career.
I could see him get like an 85 on his base and go up to 90 if you like parallel 5 him.
What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a pretty good shout.
Sick. Let's go. let's do the Cubs. Justin, why don't you lead us off with the Cubbies? Also, the shirt I have to be wearing today.
I want to talk about one guy in particular. Me and Josh kind of talked about him before we started filming. And this dude, I think, needs to be in here solely because of one season he's had in his life. Now, granted, he is a Chicago Cubs Hall of Famer. He may be a Major League Baseball Hall of Famer too. I would need to fact check that. But Hack Wilson. So that 1930 season, he needs a Legends moment card. So if we look at his 1930 season here, the dude had 82 RBIs middle of July. In August, he hit 13 home runs and 53 RBIs and had another 17 in September. And by the end of September 17th, he had 174 RBIs, breaking Lou Gehrig's major league record. And let's just talk about the batting average. 356 batting average, 454 OBP, and a league-leading 723 slugging percentage. This dude was voted the NL's most useful player of all time. And so the dude was Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire before Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. So if you're not going to get those guys in the game because of what we all know happened, I think he needs to be in the game just to allow people's wet dreams of having Sosa and Mark McGwire.
I mean, 191 RBIs, y'all. It's just so, like, that's never going to be topped, I would imagine.
I think the only way you would top it is if you would do it in Road to the Show, but even in Road to the Show, that'd be impossible.
It's just so many, right? Like, also, would like to note, didn't even place in the MVP voting that year. Who won the MVP in 1930? That Hack Wilson didn't even crack like the top 10.
Joe Cronin. Who
in the world? We're doing this,
and
people.
It was second year in a row that he had won it too.
Oh my God. Who is Joe Cronin? The shortstop for the Washington Senators, I guess that would have been at that point. Interesting. Maybe they just don't have that listed because it doesn't show on Baseball Reference that he won MVP that year either.
Oh, okay. So, okay, here we go. Due to financial strains, there was no MVP award for 2 consecutive years. And so the Associated Press polled its members and named Joe Cronin as its unofficial American League MVP. Wilson was the National League MVP, but no league MVP that year due to financial constraints.
What kind of financial constraints would
great
cause
depression.
You? Yeah, but how much financial strain is there to like mail a guy a letter or like put his name down on a list of like, yeah, he won MVP?
I don't know. I mean,
anyway, doesn't matter. Hack Wilson would be an incredible card to have in the game.
And his name's Hack. How can you go wrong with a guy who swings a really hard bat and his name is Hack?
Apparently his first name was Lewis. But yeah, that was the big one for me on the Cubs. Sammy Sosa obviously hit 600 home runs. Don't know that we'll ever see him. I think everybody kind of knows the resume Sosa had with the Rangers, with the Cubs, with the Rangers again. I think he was on the Red Sox for a minute.
No, he was on the Orioles.
Orioles, that's right. He one of the better players that I remember watching growing up is Sosa out there in right. The little bunny hop, that would be a cool animation to have. We talked about Bo Jackson breaking his bat over his helmet. Sammy Sosa's bunny hop home run, no doubt celebration could be electric.
So I was kind of conflicted on who I wanted to put in the game. So why not have both? Derrek Lee and Ramos Ramirez. Just because they're, I'll read Derrek Lee's stats from 04 to 09 because that was like his prime. He hit 304 with 163 homers, 518 RBIs with a OPS of 923, and he hit almost 50 in 2005 with a 335 average.
Derrek Lee would actually be a good shout. I would agree with that, especially that 2005 season. Let's go on to the St. Louis Cardinals. I said Mark McGwire for a lot of the same reasons as Sosa. Just that steroid era home run race, you could have like maximum power numbers both online and offline, and it would be, I think, a really fun card to use. I don't know that we'll ever see it, but that was one I had. Justin, do you have anybody else?
And the thing is, one's kind of a fairly recent player, and one's a little bit of a pushback. So I'll start off with the old guy, since I like bringing up old guys that need to be in the game, some random old dudes. So I'd say Jim Bottomley. So we talk about the potential addition of the player manager as a cool feature we could add. Why not add Jim Bottomley? Yeah, the first base crew in Diamond Dynasty is pretty big. I mean, he had a 310 career batting average and just under 2,500 hits and just over 1,400 RBIs. Pretty much a St. Louis Cardinals / Cincinnati Reds lifer. He spent most of his career in St. Louis, though, whether it was the St. Louis Browns or the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, nice little addition to have there. And apparently, he retired to raise cattle with his wife in Missouri. So, nice little fun fact about Sonny Jim there. But the other one, and I might be taking Sportsman's here, and Sportsman can talk more about it. But I think we need to get Matt Holliday in the game. I mean, he's a recent dude. He's 42. Retired not too long ago, just under a 300 career batting average, 1,200 RBIs, and just over 2,000 hits. Had to do it to my Braves a couple times, whether it was his time with the Rockies or his dreaded time with the St. Louis Cardinals. But he deserves it and deserves to be in the games.
For me, I would want to go with someone I think they might get this year, or if not in future. I would want to see Ted Simmons simply because he's a switch hitting catcher. It's like one of those players for me that he may not be like a Babe Ruth, or he may not be like a player like of that caliber, but for catching, it's one of the best.
Dizzy Dean, be an interesting card. He didn't play for very long. I think he broke his toe and then hurt his arm trying to come back too quickly from a broken toe. But for Cardinals, he won MVP one year. He's very reminiscent to me of like Tim Lincecum, or I guess Lincecum is reminiscent of Dizzy Dean, of just like very dominant for a minute and then just couldn't stay healthy. All right, next up, the Milwaukee Brewers. Justin, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so this is a guy that not a lot of people know. And in doing my research, he's apparently the best first baseman to ever play in Milwaukee, not named Prince Fielder, Cecil Cooper. So he had a career 298 batting average and 241 home runs with just over 1,100 RBIs. He's one of the few people that you can really add in to the Milwaukee Brewers because their history hasn't been that great. It hasn't been that bright until recent years. And then let's get the one of the best starting pitchers of all time in Brewers history, which again is not saying much. Give me Ben Sheets, the Braves legend too. No, yeah, Ben Sheets is a guy that would be probably a silver. Pick his greatest moment in his career and make it a silver or a gold card, just to get another legend in the game for Milwaukee.
Ben Sheets in 2004 could be an electric card.
Yeah.
He had like 264 strikeouts that year. Somehow in 2004, I blame Spider Tack personally. He almost doubled his like career average in strikeouts in 1 year. So he went 157 in 2003, 264, and then 141 in strikeouts back to back to back years. I don't know how he managed to figure it out in 2004 and then not at all the rest of his career, but at least in the strikeout area, I don't know. He could be a real interesting card. Yeah, like you said, Braves legend, 9 whole games there. Just one of the best Braves to ever put on the uniform. That was one of mine. I said JJ Hardy. I don't know why. It just feels like we could use another shortstop.
I
Why not?
agree.
JJ
Yeah.
Hardy as like a Brewer or Oriole. It wouldn't be high. It feels like he'd be like a BR card. But you could give him a Gold Glove or like a Silver Slugger card. You know, he was an
Wouldn't
all-star in '07 with Milwaukee, Gold Glove, all-star, Silver Slugger all in 1 year, 2013 in Baltimore. Feels like he'd be a good BR card. Has some pretty good, like, could be a mid-diamond, could be a gold, had some years that he'd be a silver. So he gives you some flexibility as far as cards go.
for the Brewers, there's not a lot of pitchers, and I'm only gonna go with Gallardo because I feel like he's like a perfect card that you could put early in the game. Well, he'd be well rounded. The career in Milwaukee that he had, it wasn't bad, and especially with his 2010 card, he won. He had a Silver Slugger, an All Star Game appearance in the year after. He was 7th in Cy Young voting.
As I
There's
recall, Gallardo had a fairly funky delivery, so if you could replicate that in the show, kind of hid the ball with his glove and he threw it like directly over his head and it was hard to pick up. Uh, so I
and
don't know. It could be one of those. It's like he's not great statistically, but he's hard to hit, especially if they gave him like a sinker. If the sinker meta stays the same in 22.
I believe he threw a sinker, changeup. I knew he threw a slider, but yeah, I wouldn't. He'd be hard to hit, especially those first couple weeks.
All right, let's do Pittsburgh. So we got Honus Wagner, we got Clemente. Those were the last two like must-haves in my opinion. So who did you guys come up with for Pittsburgh?
So for me, I took two recent pitchers. So I went back to that kind of 2013 Pittsburgh roster that was a pretty good baseball team. And I think there's some opportunity to have like some gold level moments kind of cards. Not Pittsburgh lifers by any stretch of the imagination, but pitched really well when they were there. So Francisco Liriano, 2013 to 2016. Had a decent going with Pittsburgh. Obviously, it didn't end as well. But in 2015, went 12-7 for the Pirates. Had a down 2014, but finished strong. But I mean, if you really talk about when he first came in with 2013, had some issues with up and down injuries, but ended up winning the 2013 NL Comeback Player of the Year and was in the top 8 in WAR or pitching WAR for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and was a big reason why they had a 94 win season.
That's a good one. Who did you have, Sportsman?
I'm gonna go with a lefty, but I'm gonna go with a lefty bat, and his name is Brian Giles. He hit on average from '99 to 2002 about 35 home runs, and his career high was 39 in '99. Had a funky stance, great power bat, especially for lefties. I could see him getting like a Jason Bay card. You
Mhm.
know how he could be like a boss. Yeah, I could see that kind of card. For those couple years in Pittsburgh, he was probably one of the best outfielders.
He is one of the ones I think about in the outfield. We would be remiss without at least mentioning Barry Bonds as a potential Pirate ad. Uh, Yeah, won an MVP with the Pirates, actually, which I would not have pulled, but he did in 1990. One of the ones, though, I think about as being fun to add, now that we have Honus Wagner, kind of that in that same-ish time period, is Paul Warner. From 1926 to 1945, played most of his years there in Pittsburgh, did play some with Brooklyn. Paul Warner had 3,000 hits. He had 100 career home runs, so not a big power guy. But the 3,000 hits, I think, speak for itself. He won 3 batting titles. He won an MVP. It's tough, right? Because we're at the point now where we've added every single player that we could ever want from the Pirates into the game. We have Clemente. We have Jason Bay. We
Yes.
have Jason Kendall. I don't think anybody was asking for Jason Kendall, but we now have him. There's we're out, right? Honus Wagner was the last big one, and we got him 2 years ago. Is that right, Sportsman?
19. He was the collection reward for
That's right.
auto cards he collected.
So we're out of Pirates, and we have Stargell is in the game, I believe. Fred Warner is one that he's like a small outfielder. He weighed 153 pounds, was not a power hitter, but he did hit 333. He had 3,100 hits, was one of the better players in his era. So yeah, that's all that we have, I believe, for the NL Central as far as new legends or new legends that we are wishing for in the game. I hope you guys enjoy. If you made it this far, comment the word. Give me a word, Justin.
Bob.
Comment Bob, but spell it weirdly. And we'll catch y'all in the next one.